Howdy folks, welcome back to Nites Bites. I'm your host Clark Garen, my colleague Mary McGee.
Good evening.
So when we left we were discussing, we kind of got sidetracked off on oil, which I think is a big problem, but that Obama speech, I mean, he just panders. He's given something to everybody. It's like it reminded me of like when McDonald's tries to convince you their food is healthy.
It's a big one. You know what I thought of this whole extravaganza with Obama and the Broncos playing field, Invesco Field? I thought it was ostentatious and pretentious. I was practically embarrassed to be a Democrat. I would have thought that this would be something the Republicans would do with all their money. I think it was a waste of money. Do you know how many homeless shelters could have been built? Poor people could have been fed? I didn't like it for the money spent. And I'm embarrassed for the Democrats. And I'm a Democrat.
That's an interesting perspective. Well, he was trying to recapture the...
Don't tell me Kennedy magic.
Yeah, the magic of Kennedy.
Oh.
Now, and I actually went to the speech, the acceptance speech that Kennedy gave in the Los Angeles Coliseum. And pretty much anybody who wanted to could get in. I had a ticket, but they really weren't watching it. You sat there in the stands, and he was a mile away. Even in the days of black and white television, you could see it better on the television. But Kennedy didn't make the broad kind of promises to everybody that Obama did. Obama was, you know, whatever you wanted, whatever's wrong, you know, just vote for him and he's going to fix it.
Cradle to grave.
And which is really one of the big problems that I came to understand. I always thought the controversy was between Clinton and Obama. And I realized that this last week that I was wrong. It wasn't between Hurricane Hillary and Barack Obama. It was between two democratic philosophies. Obama has inherited the mantle of Lyndon B. Johnson. The Great Society, government can answer everything you need. The ultra-liberals that stopped winning elections. And Hillary is the Bill Clinton pragmatic approach that we can't do everything. We need to be concerned about the less fortunate, but we also need to appeal to moderates. We need to be in the middle.
We can't fix everything right now.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that was really the struggle.
Interesting perspective.
And the problem is that if people really, Obama's done a good job of, it reminds me of the pea in the shell. You know, the three shells are going, you don't know which one has the pea. Obama's playing the pea in the shell game. He doesn't want us to know what he really stands for. But I have a feeling he's a lot more like the policies of Lyndon B. Johnson, which we already know failed. It created the biggest welfare state in the history of the world and the biggest problem. It's one of the things that started us off on the track to become a third world nation that George W. Bush has been able to finish off.
Yeah, Lyndon B. Johnson, he just went too far. He didn't make some cutoffs that should have been, that he didn't foresee.
Well, I think that was a big part of the problem. The other part of the problem was he got off on that Vietnam War, which he couldn't get out of. His legacy without that war would be completely different. He might have been able to change things. I mean, I gotta give Lyndon Johnson credit. He was a courageous person. When he signed the Civil Rights Act, He said this is going to lose the South to the Democratic Party for 50 years, and he was right. But he said he was going to do it because it was the right thing to do. He's nowhere near as bad and evil as history has portrayed him lately, but he's nowhere near as good as he should have been had he not got distracted on that Vietnam War. A lesson that unfortunately George W. Bush and Dick Cheney didn't pay any attention to.
And what was that about? How did they not pay attention to history and the wars? I don't understand that, but Bush and Cheney both, and Rumsfeld, they all...
And something else I have a problem with on Obama, a big problem.
What's that?
And that's on the surge. Because he wants to pretend that the surge didn't work, and McCain, he didn't want to do the war, and McCain did. Now, I've heard that Barack was opposed to the war, but I've never heard why. I was opposed to the war because I said you can't give people freedom, they can only take it. But I haven't heard that from him. I'm not too sure he didn't want to oppose the war because he wanted the money spent on poverty programs. Well, I don't know why he opposed it. I'm interested to hear that. It's something that needs to be filled in. But the real tragedy is that war would have worked if George W. Bush hadn't staffed the Reconstruction effort with only people who were against abortions. That was the criteria. You have experience in nation building? Oh, well, we don't care. How do you feel about Roe versus Wade? Oh, you basically you're against, great, you go rebuild Iraq. Oh, you're against Roe versus Wade, but you rebuild Kosovo? We can't use you. That was the problem. And when they finally, he made a complete mess out of it, but when they finally got somebody there who was more interested in doing the job than political things, it started working. That's really the crime of George W. Bush. It could have worked.
It could have.
But they keep on saying, and in fairness to McCain, McCain never endorsed the way Bush went about the war. As a military man, he always said we need more people. So this is more what we talked about earlier, the one-lines, the out of context, which give a complete distortion of the record. Now, I'm a little bit concerned about having a Cold War veteran like McCain come into the new millennium and deal with Putin and deal with the Arab problems and deal with terrorism. I'm concerned. I'm absolutely frightened to death about Sarah the Empty Suit doing it. I mean, you ask this broad about foreign policy, she hadn't thought about it.
Sarah,
you ask her about the war, well, I don't know, I haven't really thought about it. I'm too busy trying to drill more oil.
Sarah Barracuda Palin.
Yeah.
Alaska.
But, I mean, she's bright. Maybe she'll be a quick study. I don't know how she got there. But Barack, I have a real problem with him because the idea of, I think he's going to be more interested in the war of giving things to the minority communities than he's going to be about improving our place in the world. I think he may be way too liberal to be able to bring us back to where we were before these Republicans came in. And one thing that's scary, the reason Bush was so bad is that for 6 years he had a Republican Congress rubber stamping him. Now whoever becomes president in 08 is going to have, or 09, they're going to have a democratically controlled Congress.
And you know, that's the only reason that I feel okay, but only okay, if McCain should win the presidency. Because
you as a liberal Democrat?
I said I feel okay because it's going to be a Democratic-controlled Congress, House and Senate. And
so even you're afraid of a rubber stamp Democratic president?
I'm a little afraid of any rubber stamping, whatever party. I think we've always worked best when we've had a president of one party and a Senate and the Congress controlled by another party.
Folks, did you ever think you would hear a member of the National Organization for Women say such a thing?
That has nothing to do with it. It's checks and balances for our nation. I'm interested in the progress and the future of this country. And checks and balances always work best.
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us. Please join us next time. Bye, folks.
Good night.